Hi, this is Tundra Talks. Back in the day, there was a ton of platforming mascot games, most notably Mario and Sonic. A ton of companies tried to make their own mascot to capitalize off of the idea. But some were good, most were shit. But my favorite would be Rocket Knight Adventures from Konami for the Sega Genesis.
Rocket Knight was definitely one of the better mascot games of the 90s. Not only does it deviate from the mascot formula enough to make it unique, it also brings a lot to the table to make it stand out on its own. Where other mascot games are either too different from the Sonic or Mario formula, or an exact copy. One of the unique aspects of Rocket Knight Adventures is that it blends two genres that were really popular at the time. Side-scrolling platforming, and shoot-em-ups, or shmups for short.
In the game, you play as a possum named Sparkster, a rocket knight from the Kingdom of Zeblos, and you rescue Princess Sherry from the Black Knight, Axe of Gear, and save her from the Devantidos Empire. Story's not important. What is important is how you master the creative game mechanics to get to the end.
You have a sword and a jetpack. The sword allows you to shoot beams, but damage is better if you hit them with the sword itself. And the jetpack allows Sparkster to fly during shooting levels, but you can also charge it for a spinning attack, or you can use it for a boost that not only gets you over platforms, but can damage enemies. Like in most platformers, if you get hit by an enemy, you get a few seconds of invulnerability. But what's unique to Rocket Knight is if you hit an enemy with your sword, you won't get damaged as they touch you. It doesn't seem like much, but this allows you to devise a strategy to get really close to some enemies and dish out some damage, and as a plus, make you feel like you're cutting through them.
Rocket Knight Adventure's real strength is in the level design. Now, there's only 7 levels, but each is composed of about 3 or more areas, and each one has its own unique game mechanics to keep the player on their toes.
The first 2 areas introduce you to the main mechanics in the game. You learn that you can cut through enemies by the cars coming at you, you learn that Sparkster can hang from his tail, and how to use the jetpack to get over obstacles. And that's all without being told how. The second area simply lets you try out the shooter mechanics at your own pace. Both areas are great because they both set up the basics for the rest of the game.
For example, some areas simply have you going from left to right, fighting enemies along the way, jumping on platforms, yada yada yada. But each area has its own unique catch, which you need the basics of the first 2 to make it through.
One level has you simply just jumping from platform to platform in a lava-filled cave. You'll die if one pixel touches the lava, and sometimes you can't see where you are because of the foreground. It sounds like bullshit, but you'll notice that you can see your reflection in the lava and the other platforms. Another area changes it up by putting you on a minecart. It really restricts your movement, but the tight controls allow you to adapt easily to the environment. As for the shooting stages, they're pretty straightforward. Nothing like a bullet hell game, but challenging in their own right. Remember when I talked about cutting through enemies? That's actually pretty important to the shmup levels, as some bosses can take up the whole screen. Sadly though, there's only 3 shmup stages. One is the basic that I've covered before, another is in space, but my favorite is the third, where you swoop into the pig city. You move so fast, and all the bullets make you feel like you're really on an air raid.
All of these differences may seem a little trivial, but they add a unique challenge to the game. As Rocket Knight can be finished in about 45 minutes, it has to diversify the gameplay enough to keep the player on the edge of their seat.
Rocket Knight may be short, but it also is hard. Depending on the difficulty level, it can take you many tries to get through a level, and that's just to get down the patterns. But, like other games on the Genesis or Nintendo, the more you play a level, the better you get at it, and soon you can pass through a tough level like it was paper.
This can feel great, as pushing through a frustrating part of this game can feel fantastic once you beat it. And like levels, even bosses follow their own patterns.
The first boss, you simply play whack-a-mole, but as you move on, they get more complex. For example, the train boss at the end of World 2 took me a few tries, but once I got down his pattern, he became one of the easier bosses in the game. Your first fight against the Black Knight is cool, as you get into a giant robot and do get... Come on. Really? God damn it!
Remember when Past Me said that bosses follow a specific pattern? Well, Past Me's a lying fucking asshole. All the bosses follow a pattern except for Real Steel over here.
The robot part is easily the worst part of the game. You can try all different kinds of strategies, but none of them work. There is no pattern. You have to wail on him, but not only does he attack faster, he has a longer reach. Unlike the other fights that need precision and skill, this one is just luck.
suckers knocked off!
After you finally beat that awful shit, you greet it with one last shmup stage, and then a final fight with Axel Gear. And this is probably where the game should have ended.
This fight is pretty simple, but it's awesome. It really feels like you're duking it out with somebody that's your equal. But the final boss is just this giant sphere pig thing. That's the real Emperor or something? He's pretty simple, but long and tedious. He follows some basic patterns, dodges lasers, and go for the boxing glove things that he conveniently sticks out. And then you beat the game.
Kind of. In order to actually beat the game, you have to beat it on hard difficulty. And since I'm a lazy shit, fuck it. But I've played enough of Rocket Knight to know that it's one of my favorite games of all time.
Rocket Knight Adventures is what it is. It never really takes itself seriously. I mean, how could you? You're a possum with a jetpack. But it also offers a unique challenge that just doesn't exist in many games today. If you ever get a chance, play it.
Rocket Knight is a great game. It really goes to show you when you have talented developers take something identifiable, like a mascot game, and then do something on their own. But I bet you guys are wondering, what does a game look like when it tries to copy another mascot game, verbatim, say Sonic the Hedgehog, but with untalented developers that have no idea what makes Sonic the Hedgehog great? Well, I do. This is Tundra Talks, and I'm done talking.
Awesome, awesome, Kickstarter machine, butt.
I'm awesome!
Oh. No.